This recording we're going to take a look at the different chart types that we have, and we'll walk through each of these. And by chart types, I mean across the horizontal here, the type of a time, rank, part to whole, deviation, distribution, correlation, and nominal comparison, rather than thinking of the types as separated by like area, bars, etc. So as we come through, you'll see the differences. By the way, this chart is fairly informative here because as you can come through, you can see like a type time and a type distribution are best represented by area charts, and as we drop through you'll see why that is. So the first thing I'm going to do is show you the methodology that I used to create this, and I've got Report Builder already up and running, and I'm just going to go into a new report. And what I did is here I've just used blank reports, and so we've just got this Report Builder on up. And I'm going to pull that on down and dump out the footer so that we have a little more working space. Now, I'm just going to show you this once, and then I'll pop through each of the reports. Again, remember, in the lower corner of Report Builder down here, you can see that you're connected into a report server is going to host the reports once we publish them on up. So all I did was I came in the data source, and I right-clicked, and I added a data source in here, and as you can see, I've got a number of data sources that are shared. That means they're hosted up into the report server. And I came through and created one. And I'll just come through and pick the cube. And of course, I always test. And that worked. And I came through and said, OK. And then I've got a data source or a connection into wherever I'm going to be bringing the data from. Again, data set. I'd add a data set. Now here I embedded one in the report rather than having to go up and post it into a shared every time. So I'll pick the data source that I just created, and I went into Query Designer, and I used the current, I'm logged on as administrator, so the current window user. And then the Query Designer fires on up, and depending on my data source is what the designer is going to show. Here, almost all of my demonstrations, actually save one in here, are tied into a cube. So I've got the measures down here, and very quickly, measures are things that can be, if you will think of them as things that can be aggregated. So normally it's a number of some type, and then as we drop down we've got dimensions. The easiest way to think of a dimension is it decorates a number, or it's if we were using English, or we would come through and say this is this number by contracts, demographic, etc., by employee dimension down here, and I can add that. And now you see I've got all the departments and all this. Of course, the numbers are all the same down here because these are not really related. So that was the methodology, and cubes are well beyond the scope of this course for a detailed look. So let me cancel out of this and come through and cancel out of that. And now I'm actually going to go through and take a look at it. If you remember, the first thing we wanted to look at was we're going to take a look at a time series. So I'll come in here and I'm going to open this on up, and I've got a time series. Now I'm not going to save anything, it's just a little demo in here. And my time series chart is on up. As you can see, it's a line chart. And my data source, I am tied into my cube. And let's take a look at this data set. Here's the actual MDX code. If I go into Query Designer, it'll fire on up, hopefully fairly quickly, so we can move on along. And here's the Query Designer, and I can come on in, and this is where I actually did the code of the query that you see down in here. If you take this code, if you type it on out, or actually enter it on in by drag and drop, and then you go into Analysis Services, you can open that, you can save that code, and then come through and execute it, which I'll show you. I'm going to open that code down in there, and let's take the time series. All I did was copy this in from the query that I did down there, and I came through and executed it. And if I would pick the right cube, the right database to execute it against, we actually have a result down here. The truth is, when I came through and first want to take a look when I'm creating my charts, I'll go into my data source, and then here, as I'm doing them off of a cube, come through and create them here in the cube browser so I can get a feel for the data, more specifically so I can get a feel for the ranges, the way the data is going to be displayed. And then I'll go through and start working back and forth into the tools. Let me cancel out of this. All right, now here's this time series, and what we have, if I select this, now over here is my chart data. Under my values, I've got sales amount, and that's going to be summed down here, and we're going to look at it as time series across the bottom down here in category groups by fiscal year. Now, pay attention to the way this displays here, and then when I run it. All right, you notice the differences in the chart. That's because the representation when I'm in design view is just the way, an approximation of the way it's going to look. So here's my time series again, and I'm going to run it on out. So a time series is showing me internet sales by fiscal year as I drop on back, coming across in the times. These are very common charts. The next chart we're going to take a look at, or the next type of chart, we'll take a look at a ranking chart, and if you'll notice, that works best as a bar. So I'll open this and go back over to design view, and I'll open my ranking relationship. No, don't save it. Okay, my ranking relationship, I'm comparing in my data set. I've got a product ID and a standard cost. So I'm going to look at the different costs of the different products as I come down here like this. Right. Again, we're bringing all this information in off of my OLTP down in here. So I'll run it. And here's standard costs. Here's the product IDs. And here's the bars as she drops on down as opposed to the standard costs as I expand on out. So you can take a look at that. I can come back in here like this. I can simply right click on the chart. Here you'll see the chart data, standard cost, my series. As I come down there, I want to look at the product ID. I'm going to change types just so you can see it. Right now I've got a bar. Let's change it to a column and run the report. And now I've got it this way, if that's the way you would actually like to take a look at it. It's very trivial to change this on out. Just for a quick look here, let's do that again. Change chart types, and we're going to change it on out to a pie. And as you can see, here's my pie. Now I'll come through and run it. And there's the pie chart, which I'm not a big fan of pie charts when they're utilized like this. This is very difficult to see. What's the difference between this one and this one over in here? And that's difficult to see. That said, it doesn't really much matter. Pie charts are very popular. All right, so now we'll come through and take a look at the part to wholes. And I'll move through this very quickly now, as you've already figured out everything we're doing. No, don't change any. That is a pie chart. See, this works very well because a pie chart works well if it only has two comparisons in there. You can see that. And a deviation. Okay, deviation gives me sales amount to quota. So what I'm looking at is one compared to the other down in here. Here's the sales amount in this color, and in the quota is in blue. And now I actually run it. And as you can see, as we come on up here, we're doing finding the sales amount. She's masking this down here. And then obviously something happened down here. I guess that was the recession. Because the sales amount just plummeted down there, whereas the quotas extended on across. Looking at a distribution. Distribution relationship shows me down here in this scatter chart, one compared to the other. So I've got internet sales amount in blue compared to reseller sales amount down here in yellow. This gives you a quick glance so you can quickly take a look at them in here. So you can see we're pretty much in a line here, but something popped up in there, and we had a huge pop-up in here, reseller sales amount, which might make someone take a better look and see what happened in there. Now we'll look at correlation, trying to find what happened. Sorry, I opened the wrong thing there. All right, here we've got a correlation. By the way, the view is not working here because let me do that. See, now you see your report data. So I've got correlation, average unit price, all right, down here as I come down here. So I got average unit price for average sales amount. And I'll run that. Maybe I will. So again, we've got this nice graph up here. Again, our sales amount, internet average sales rate versus average unit price. And as you see, these are directly correlated in here. And the last one is a nominal comparison. All right, the nominal comparison, what I've got up in here, if we can take a look at the data set, I've got sales territory and region versus freight cost. And they're called nominal comparison because these two really don't have any relationship in here. We're just coming through and seeing if we can identify some kind of an anomaly. So here's the regions as I come across like this, and here's the freight cost. Notice the empty regions here. That's because this horizontal axis was not set up to display all the information, to clean up the display here. We'll fix that a little bit later on. And that is your type. So what you want to take a look at is you want to look at your data, and then you're going to come across in your types and figure out what it is you're actually trying to look at. Then once you have that relationship set on up, you can move between the different types of charts and decide which one it is you want to display. Once you have that up, then we go through and do cleanups, such as that little thing I just mentioned in there as far as cleaning up the horizontal bar, etc.